Hello, stranger.
Morning. You remember my partner?
Ah, as in copper. Well, obviously, because you're way out of his league.
We're investigating an incident. He was murdered, pushed onto the tracks.
That's paperwork if he jumped.
What happened that night?
We found the body attacked at her home. Detective Inspector Max Arnold. This is a murder investigation.
This actually makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Was your dad in any trouble?
God's punishment for his sins.
Oh, dear.
What I wouldn't give for an innocent explanation.
You might want to see this.
Bloody hell. That's it. Go, go.
Police! If anyone is in here, make yourself known!
Just leave me alone.
Where there's trouble, he's never far behind.
Max, don't ever change.
Never been any good at that.
Our guest stars is Detective Inspector Max Arnold in the new Acorn TV original series, The Chelsea Detective, premiering February 7, with new episodes dropping every Monday on the streamer. Welcome to Screen Watching, Adrian Scarborough. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. How lovely to be here. Very lovely.
Congratulations on the show. It's certainly cut from a classic sort of TV cloth, that British cop procedural, and it certainly delivers on that. But there are points of difference that make Max Arnold and those around him, I guess, interesting to play on your part and certainly compelling to watch on our part. When you came to the character, what jumped out at you?
Oh, he rides a bicycle.
Yes, he does, and rides it well.
And he rides it well. And I don't know any other cops who ride a bicycle. Well, not since about the 1940s and 50s anyway. So yes, we're very lucky to have a very beautiful bicycle for me to ride. And in fact, I do ride a bicycle in London all the time.
Well, that was my next question. Was that something you had to relearn or learn?
No, it really isn't something I had to relearn. It was one of those boxes that got ticked as soon as I read the script. I kind of went, well, that's going to be fine. I'm really going to enjoy that. In fact, some of my most exciting days on the show were doing cycling montages around bits of London that I never usually get to cycle around. So over the very beautiful Albert Bridge and across Battersea Park and, beautiful, iconic places in London. And it's rather lovely to be able to sort of just cycle around them. I didn't have to remember a line of dialogue either on those days, which was also quite fun.
Did you take the gig because you're a Chelsea resident? Do you go home every night? Are you out the door at 5 kind of thing?
On the contrary, it's somewhere that I don't really know in London at all. Over the course of one's life, I find with cities, you spend time in pockets of them, don't you? Yes. And yeah, that bit of London, I've never really known at all. I just never had cause or reason to go down that road. So it was really, really lovely getting to know a whole new section of London. And in actual fact, there are those sort of eureka moments where you kind of go, oh, that road connects to that road, and I'd never realized that. Or isn't Sloane Square a lot closer than I thought? Those kinds of moments, which were actually really, really brilliant. Because having lived around London for sort of 30 years, it's nice to still be surprised by bits of it and find lots of bits of it that you just didn't know existed. Yeah,
and it's a very photogenic part of the world. It's a beautiful looking show, and you add to that, of course. But Chelsea certainly does a lot.
Truly, it is a very, very beautiful bit of London, and but it's got kind of everything. It's got those wonderful little mews houses. It's got wonderful, colourful terraces. It's got the World's End estate, which just sort of looks like something out of Star Wars. And of course, it's got those fantastic views up and down the river from Cheyne Walk, which is just sumptuous. With all,
I've got to get there one day. I've never done it. It's one of my dreams to get to the UK and visit that part of the world.
Similarly with me in Sydney, perhaps the Chelsea
house share. You could do a house swap.
Exactly. We could do a little swapsy, and I could come and shoot something down there.
That sounds lovely. I want to talk about your on-screen chemistry with Sonita Henry.
Yeah.
Lovely chemistry is not something I would usually use to describe a cop show, but But with this sort of high-end quality show, is there a lot of rehearsal time, or was a lot of that in the scripting? Did you know? Had you worked with Sonita before?
All that endless rehearsal time. Bless you for that. I'm so glad that comes across. That was time well spent. No, on the contrary, I mean, as if shooting in central London isn't complicated enough, let's do it in a pandemic.
Yes.
Just to really, really complicate things further. But also the whole chemistry of the two of us happened purely by accident, really, in a sense, because we had to do all of our chemistry reads online on Zoom. So we're trying to sort of gauge whether there's a twinkle and whether there's something here via a computer screen. And obviously that can be quite hard. So that was how we first sort of got together, really. And it's really interesting that there is, I mean, as you can tell from the two of us having this conversation now, there's a spark.
There's a spark.
There's a twinkle, and it was exactly like that with Sonita. She just kind of came onto the screen, and we just kind of went, yep, that's it. And so our big worry was that we wouldn't actually get to meet one another before we actually started shooting. So we thought we better sort that out, and we did a socially distanced walk along the Thames Path for about an hour in each direction. And for the first hour, she told me her life story, and for the second hour, I told her mine on the way back. And we kind of got to know one another like that. And then literally about 2 days later, we started shooting the series. So the first episode was a bit flying by the seat of your pants, because we kind of didn't know how this thing was going to work and what the relationship was. But yeah, there really is genuine twinkle there. And
well, there really is, yeah. And it's an interesting dynamic, because it's the age gap is quite different, but the experience gap between the two detectives is not, and that's a very close sort of working relationship. But her problems with the baby and your problems with the ex-wife, it's there's a deeper personal element which makes this a more compelling cop show for me.
Good. Well, that's sort of what we set out to achieve.
Yeah.
And I love it when you see the private lives of these individuals. I often think that the private lives are sort of sometimes more interesting than the stories.
Sure.
And I just really, really relish seeing people in their home environment. It works for me.
Yeah.
And you've kind of got, I mean, you know, her having a baby and not feeling comfortable with that, and feeling the strain and the stress on the marriage that she has with her husband. Similarly, you know, Max is in a position where he's moved out of the house that he shared with his wife for years and years onto a houseboat into the most precarious, you know, offshore bit of a river, sort of, you know, wobbling about. And I just think, as a metaphor for the show, that's really, really wonderful and rather brilliant.
I want to ask, and in all seriousness, and I should point out, I've only seen that first episode, so it may go in a different direction as the series progresses. But setting a crime drama, and we're returning to Chelsea at this point, in a posh suburb like Chelsea, I find really interesting, because it removes, or rather maybe alters, a lot of the class or race stereotyping that a lot of crime shows fall back on. How would you react to a comment like that? Because you know, this isn't a working class. We're not in the projects or any places like that. Does that come into preparation for the show?
Well, what happens later in other episodes is that Chelsea's an extraordinary place. It isn't. On the one hand, you have the affluence of the King's Road. You have Cheney Walk, you have, you know, these beautiful, incredibly expensive properties. And at the other end of it, you have the World's End Estate, which is, or was in those, when it was built in the 50s, 60s, post-war, was a sink estate for the working class of London.
Okay.
And that still very, very much exists today. And so all of these groups actually, and ethnicity similarly, all of these groups actually live cheek by jowl with one another. And certainly as the series progresses, you see that increasingly, where lots and lots of different characters from, you know, all over this incredible city kind of come together into this melting pot of Chelsea and have to exist next to one another.
That sounds
There's
fascinating.
a dark, seamy underbelly of pretty nasty people.
Sure. No, I'm looking forward to the rest of the episodes because the way the characters are set up and the way they interact and interact with the environment is fascinating. Mate, I'm going back through your IMDb list to prepare for this chat. And and this is amazing. I realized not till I hit 2003's To Kill a King, is there a film you've been in that I haven't seen? Everyone, I've seen them all. I'm not counting your television, because you've done a lot of television, which I haven't seen, but your film work, I've seen every one of them, other than right back to 2003.
Well, I've never seen To Kill a King either. Let's keep it that way.
Mate, you're still a young man, and you've already led, and you're 6 months younger than me, so that might count you as a young man. So, and you've led. I might not
be. Well, that depends when when you think my birthday is, because
May 1068.
No, Wikipedia gets it wrong.
Oh no.
Yeah, I've told them this, and they simply will not come round to my way of thinking. My birthday is the 20th of January, 1968.
Okay, so you're still younger than me by 6 months. So thanks. I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. You're still a young man, and you've already led the perfect character actor's life.
If somebody could tell them, that would really, really help. Because I get an awful lot of birthday cards on the 10th. And
is that a significant day at all? Why did they pick May 10?
I don't know. I don't know where they get that one from.
I don't know. So you've got all this amazing. You've led this amazing sort of character actor's life. Was that the young actor's dream? If you could tell young Adrian Scarborough that this is how it was going to be, would you have been happy with that?
Oh, heavens, yes. I mean, goodness me. I could not have wished for a more varied and interesting and fascinating life, really. Professionally and personally, it's been extraordinary. I'm the luckiest man in the world, quite literally. And I've been blessed to have done so many different things. I got given a very good piece of advice by somebody I really respected very early on in my career. And they basically said, look, if you want to get on in this profession as a character actor, best to be a jack of all trades, master of none, because that way, the chances are you will stay employed and you will be able to earn money to keep your family alive. And B, you will have a really, really rich time. And hopefully you'll be able to mine lots of different seams out of the profession. And it was a fantastic and brilliant piece of advice. And it's sort of paid off because, you know, I do a lot of theatre, I do a lot of telly, I get occasional work in film, I do a lot of radio drama, I do talking books, I just mix it up as much as I possibly can, because I think that keeps the imagination fresh, and it makes for a really, really interesting life. And God, you meet some fascinating people along the way.
Well, that raises my next question. You've worked alongside or in the same room as or on projects with some of our finest thespians, Kate in Notes and Elizabeth, and Russell and Hugh in Les Mis, and Jackie Weaver in Blunt Talk, a show that I love. So,
that woman.
So what does the British acting establishment say about them?
If she hadn't been married 6 times already, I'd have married her myself.
She's lovely. I've met her a few times. She's adorable.
Dream and a darling.
What does the British acting establishment say about them behind their backs? What is it that the Aussies do?
Well, I think you all know what people say about Jackie Weaver behind her back. I don't think I mean, everybody bows down in front of Kate Blanchett, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean,
And quivers in fear with Russell. So
quiver in fear with Russell, with a wry smile. Hugh, well, come on, everybody just drools.
he's adorable. He is adorable. Yes.
I saw, because I worked with Patrick Stewart when I was working with Jackie Weaver, in fact, on this show Blunt Talk that we did in America. And Patrick was, after he finished the second series, he was going on to film with Hugh. They were doing a particularly popular Marvel movie.
Yes.
And he was rapidly losing weight for it because he had to be very old and decrepit. And so he just didn't eat. And I asked him one day what it was like working with Hugh, and he didn't say anything at all. He just looked at me and smiled. And I just kind of went, yeah, that's exactly what you hear. Yeah. And it's exactly what everybody's experience. He is just warm, lovely, and, you know, brilliant at his job. Brilliant.
Yeah, we're all like that down here.
Yeah. What I'd like to do is I'd like to come and do a play.
Yes, we should get you to the Opera House or one of the big theatres in Melbourne. That'd be wonderful.
I'd really, really love to do a play. Maybe with Jackie Weaver. Who knows?
Sure.
Oh,
sure.
And her husband.
No, exactly. So finally, I guess, how does the Chelsea detective fit into the Adrian Scarborough career trajectory, starring in a primetime show that allows you to play your age, convey both wisdom and flaws? That's about as good as it gets, yes?
Well, the other thing that this man who gave me a very good piece of advice when I was younger told me was that he said, eventually what you will find as a character actor is that you start playing the age that you actually are. And you'll probably feel really, really great when that happens. And he was right again, because you do. You just kind of go, oh, I know who I am now in a way that I didn't before. And I really, really kind of trust that. And I know that it's okay. And I don't feel like I have lots that I have to prove to people anymore. And that's taken a very, very long time to come. I still thought that I was 23. And in actual fact, it turns out I'm 54.
Yeah, 54 on January 10. So is it January 10?
Yeah. 20.
January 20, May 10. I'm already confused.
Yeah.
Adrian Scarborough, it's been lovely talking to you. Congratulations so much on the show, and it's on Acorn TV. It's on Acorn TV from February 7 here in Australia. So all the very best, mate. It's been great fun.
Oh, well, thank you very much, and good luck to you.
Thanks, mate. Bye-bye.
Take care now.